let's take a look at how these queries can be written. And there are different ways to write queries, right? So this is a set of sample solutions, but your syntax may vary. For challenge 1, when I look at this and I read the challenge and I want the top 3 rows based on a column, okay, I need to figure out how do we calculate lowest average use by name. But the first thing I want to consider when I see these words, when I see the words top, and then I see for a given state code report year combo, my mind immediately wonders, can I do this with a group by? If I am interested in aggregates based on a given state code and report year combo, if I group by state code and report year, can I figure this out? When I look at this, I want it to be based on the lowest average use per name. So let's look at how that's defined. I need average use per name is dependent on 2 other calculations, the calculation of unique names and then the calculation of total names. For unique names, I need the number of distinct names reported for that state code and report year. So that's okay at that level. For that state code and report year, that fits with my group by. And for total names, very similar. I want the total number of babies reported named for that state code and report year. This can be done with group by. In my query, I am grouping by state code and report year, and I'm also returning state code and report year. To get the number of unique names, I can use that first name ID column, and I can say, I want to count the distinct first name IDs. So figure out for that given state code and report year combo, because I'm doing that group by, I want you to count the distinct first name IDs. If I did have any duplicates in my data set, any duplicate rows, that would take care of that. I also want the total named, and there's a column named name count. So I want to sum up the name count to get the total names. And then I'm going to essentially reiterate these to do the calculation. I'm going to say, okay, here is how I'm going to sum up the name count, sum of name count. Now I'm doing kind of a lazy trick here. I'm using 1 dot to multiply by that just so I'm no longer dealing with an integer, because I don't want to get an integer back. If I don't have this 1 dot, I'm just going to comment out the 1 dot there and I run this query. Then the results I'll get back, I'll get an error back. So I didn't comment out the multiplier there. So now properly commenting that out, I am casting this as numeric, but I need to actually be using a data type that isn't an integer when I do the point of the division. We've got, if you did PEMDAS in elementary school, our order of operations, I actually want to get it into an integer state before I do the division, right? So I don't want the average use per name to be 6. So the lazy way to type this, the way to get around this is to say 1 dot times this sum of name count. So my multiplication here, getting it out of integer format into a numeric format with decimal be done there, and then I'll do the division to divide by the number of distinct first name IDs. So running this query all together now, and of course you can express that in a different way. Now I get back the result that has a decimal point showing there. And if I wanted to show more decimal points, if I wanted, this wasn't your challenge, obviously, but if I wanted a greater precision, I could cast that to a different precision and get something else there. So let's go ahead and switch that one back to 1. All right, challenge 2. This actually simplifies challenge 1. If we have a working query for challenge 1, it says, hey, we don't care about report year this time. So I can actually just look at this, and what I did for this one is I copied my query. I took out report year, so I literally copied it. I said, okay, I'm not going to group by report year anymore. That's gone now. I'm not going to have report year up here anymore. And then read through the rest of the challenge and make sure that the rest still works. Now, the rest is still the same. We still want state code. We still want unique names and total names, which are defined the exact same way. And we're still going to calculate average use per name in the same way as well. We're just not grouping by report year this time. So if I run this query, I now get back these 3 rows for this one. Now we are going to take this one and we're going to build on it for challenge 3. So for challenge 3, we want the one state who has the lowest average use per name. So we really want to dive in and get details on state number 1. Well, we figured out in this query how to calculate the top 3. So really, we just want, for this second one, we want more detail on the top 1, right? So we can, if we want to take this query, change it from top 3 to top 1 and plug it in, we can do that. Here's how I did this for this query. I took the query from the previous example and I changed it from top 3 to top 1. Now, there's a few other things I don't need in there. I don't need to return the number of unique names, and I don't need to return the total named, because for this query, what we want to do, we are going to join to ref.firstname, and we're going to get out a list of first names, but we essentially, for that state that's number 1, we just want to return one row for every name used in that state with the detail defined. So here's how I did the challenge. I did a common table expression for that first query that I named MU. And MU just says I am going to figure out who is number 1 based on a top 1 and an order by. So I need to figure out that average use per name. I'm ordering by it ascending. So I have the lowest one and I'm getting a top 1. And that will tell me which state has that lowest number. Then I have a select that uses that CTE, and it says, okay, I am going to select from MU. MU is the name of my CTE up here, so I am selecting from MU. I want that state code that's from that table, because I do have that there. And then I am joining to 2 different tables. So I'm joining back to average first name by year state, because I need that list of names. So I'm joining back based on the state code. And then I'm joining to ref.firstname based on the first name ID in the table I've aliased FNBYS. So one of the things that can be a little confusing here with CTEs is inside this CTE, I've used the same alias that I've used out here. I am allowed to do that, but I don't have to do that. So if I want to make that a little more clear, I could make this FNBYS1. Right? Now, I am going to have to start clarifying everywhere I've referenced that, what is FNBYS1? So everywhere inside this CTE, I've said, okay, FNBYS1. Now, out here, I could name this 2. Let's go ahead and do that just for clarification there. So it does allow you to do the same alias there if you want, but this is a little bit clearer with FNBYS2 there. Oh, and I've missed one. There we go. Thank you, IntelliSense. So I'm joining back to the first name by year state on the state code that came out of my common table expression. I'm then joining to ref.firstname on the first name ID in this copy of first name by year state. I am grouping by state code and by first name because I need to return the sum of the total named across all years, right? In ag.firstname by year state, for each year for that state, I've got different iterations, and I want overall for all years, I want the total named for that, and then I want to return the first name. So let's go ahead and run this query and look at the results here. And sure enough, I do get 1,620 rows back, and my most unique names are first. We're ordered first by total names, then we're ordered alphabetically by first name, and we can review the names from the most unique for that state, the state that has the most unique names as the way we've defined it, to the most common name in that state is Michael, and the least common names, there's more least common names are here at the beginning as well. And some of these are names that I would expect to be more common. So it's always kind of interesting to see there the names where you're like, oh, that's interesting that that's actually that rare in the entire history of that state. I always do enjoy looking at the data here. So that is challenge 3. Now with challenge 4, you are challenged to write a stored procedure that takes in dense rank. And so we don't just want the one, we want to be able to specify. So this one, we can base it off the query before, but we need to do a little more work. In this first CTE here, common table expression, so CTE, I have named it MU, and once again, we are just saying, okay, we are going to figure out for a given state code, what is the result of the average use per name, because we are going to rank upon that. We're going to rank upon that using dentRank. Now with dentRank, I have another CTE here. So my second CTE is defined as RK. So my first CTE is named MU. My second CTE is named RK. And RK pulls from MU and then does the dentRank on that, because I already need to know, like in my first one, I've got this group by. My first CTE groups by state code, and based on that state code, it figures out what is the average use per name. I need to have that pre-calculated to feed my windowing function here. In this one, I pull from MU and I say, okay, I want to order by the average use per name ascending, and I'm going to do the dentRank of that. So this is being done after the group by, and SQL Server doesn't like me to do these in one single CTE. You may have tried that and it won't like that. But you can separate them into two different CTEs that build off one another. Now, down here in the bottom query, I have to be able to let people specify the rank. So I am ranking all of the states in RK here. The second CTE, RK, it does that ranking. I'm querying from RK in the main body of the query, and I say this is where you can specify, okay, I only want the ones whose dentRank equals the dentRank specified, and in the column for the windowing function, I return that dentRank. We then join to other tables so that we can return the details on that first name, just like we did in the query before, and once again, we are grouping by state code and first name, just like in the query before. Let's go ahead and compile this procedure to actually highlight the whole thing. So there we go. I'll collapse it and expand it out. And now let's go ahead and do our call for testing. In this case, dentRank equals 2. We get back the state of Wyoming with the 5 count names first, then alphabetized alphabetically. And again, there are names in here that I'm really surprised. Like Connor, I would have thought would have been a much more common name in the United States in Wyoming. The most common name in Wyoming, the most common name in Wyoming is Robert, the one that's used the most. And then the least common names are here at the top. I hope that you enjoyed this T-SQL writing challenge. I'm Kendra Little from SQL Workbooks. I'll see you again for another challenge soon. Bye, folks.